earlier today. I've been woke for almost 2 days, so so you get honesty, yes. And I was thinking, like,
the Artist Exchange Radio Show.
Long live Pop. Y'all can go ahead and cry now. I'ma show these niggas what to do with one of your beats, man. I am gas, by the way. Strong woman story should have been on CNN. Nobody knows what it's like being Gwen. Windows closed in the house, it ain't no CNN. Can't gain weight for years, she been being thin. Single mother, no help from the system. When they was giving out food stamps, she missed them. Birth certificate, baby daddy, she couldn't list them. But her son was so beautiful when she kissed him. Blame it on love, but nigga she could've died with. Destroyed the whole world, I found out she was a side chick. The nigga loved his wife, and it got hard to hide it. So when Gwen confronted him, he ain't even denied it. Her fault, depends on who you asking. She tried to be a stripper, but the tip out was taxing. Buying all the purses, trying to keep up with the fashion. And her mama hated babysitting with a passion. She deserved better, better circumstances. A black queen, she should've been blessed with certain chances. Look down upon, getting all the hurting glances. Making men change up all the twerking stances. She never cried about the pain, only gritted her teeth. But most soldiers never get a flower or a wreath. She like G.I. Jane in the war with no relief. Don't recognize why killers was going through her beef. She said more prayers than the nun did. After seeing so much struggles with only one kid, the clinic said baby number 2 couldn't be undid. 9 months later, delivery and it's one big. But this time it was an older dude. But this shit happened so fast, she barely know the dude. Damn, but we all make mistakes though. And the older we get, that's how mistakes go. So he claimed the baby, now with no money. He said shit was hard and his dollars was kinda funny. Real was feeling like that was strike 2. So when it rains and pours, that's just how life do. She was thinking about her childhood and how life flew. A daddy she always loved, but she never quite knew. This was before the bags and the cellulite grew. Other bitches in her shoe, no telling what they might do. You lose a lot of friends, they start to despite you. Passing judgment when they don't got the right to. And even though I love the gangsters, the same for the gangsters. I remember you no matter how big the fame gets. Paint a perfect picture, baby you can frame this. As long as I'm snapping, you will never be nameless. While I was robbing, you did things that was shameless. Both products of our environment, we was blameless. They deserve better, those women who raised men. Who went out of town with us in that day's end. The ones we leave on the streets when them days end. Got slammed right with us when the feds blaze in. Not only men is going through it on the wild turf, but the women too. Add that to the childbirth. Kids raising kids, not knowing what a child worth. How you walk in they shoes when every mile hurt. Turn down the nigga, now you can't get respect from him. Think you should fuck just cause you got a check from him. It's bad, ask him where is his pad. Them broke niggas always bitter and it's sad. So what they done to you, they done to me, they done to us. So when I speak of real niggas, just know you one of us. Yes.
There's a rumor going around that Tyler Perry and Oprah are beefing. Well, let me tell you about this. Tyler, okay, told Oprah, bitch, if you don't have my money, we're going to have a problem. Ooh. Oprah said, what is the problem? Ooh. You said if I don't have your money, there was going to be a problem. So Oprah is standing her ground like, bitch, I'm in charge. Yeah, you know, you may have a $250 million studio over there that you film all your shows and movies and stuff on, but I have the empire. That's what Oprah said.
Oh, these are her exact words. Allegedly.
I made this up. But
allegedly.
I made it all up. But there was a rumor that they were beefing. But Tyler confirms that they don't have any issues. So it says it was recently reported on the rumors that was swirling that the twosome were on the outs over constructive criticism of a Perry show. Well, I got some constructive criticism, and we can be on the outs, Tyler, and I don't give a damn because I'm gonna make a promo out of this anyway and share it to your page. I need the scenes on have and have nots to be like 5% shorter. Each one. I want you to watch an episode of The Young and the Restless, because this is supposed to be a soap opera. No one's dialogue on The Young and the Restless is like this. You don't have to talk about the random plant in the corner for 25 minutes on one damn scene.
They talk about random plants. It was a blood stain on the floor for 5 episodes. I can't take it. We need to kick this up. I'm sorry. I love the Have and the Have-Nots, and I continue to watch it in its 5th season, but I get so mad when I can go get myself a glass of water and come back and he had just started the next sentence in his first paragraph. I can't stand it. They just want to get the point across.
It's not but you don't get the point for 4 episodes. It's too much. So now, according to ET Online reports, Tyler Perry has a pre-cut and dried response to a pretty cut and dry response to the rumors about him and Oprah. Here's what he says. It's completely false.
What was that? That was your Tyler Perry impression? Oh, God. What?
That was my Medea voice.
Oh. Okay.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Welcome. We at this channel. Welcome to the Artist Exchange Radio Show here live on BeExposedRadio.com, please. Thank you. I'm your host, Nate. We're here in this frigidly comfortable Monday evening.
Artist Exchange.
Here in Baltimore. And I have two very special guests with us today. We have Mr. David. Tell me how you say his
Severy.
And he's going to explain, because I'm just about to give him a label, and I don't want him to have that label, because he's a person beyond any label you can give. And then on this side, we got Sweet Daddy.
Oh, man. Jeez. I got
Mr. Dameon here with us today. He's joining us. He's taking a little breather from his jet setting around the globe to come join us and tell us about his many travels. But like you have already heard, November, we're dedicating the month of November to self-care. And there's many different forms of self-care, many different variations, and many perspectives when we talk about self-care. We talked about as a school teacher, as an artist, as just a human being in relationships. But today we're going to spend a little bit talk about communication and how communication and how effective communication can help us with our self-care. Telling the truth. Just telling the truth. Learn how to relate and be relatable and engage and be able to sit down and speak with people who may not necessarily share your perspective in life, and how effective and how good it could be for your self-care and supportive of your self-care if we learn how to communicate better. So I want to start off by asking these gentlemen to first introduce themselves, give us a brief little understanding of who they are, and we're going to start over here, Mr. David.
Wow, this is the first time for everything, and I can assure you this is the first time I've been on live video.
You see yourself?
Yes, I do. I think there's a time lapse, which is a little confusing.
Yeah,
but that's okay. My name's Dave. I'm 70 years old in April, and I was born in 1949 to upper middle class parents in a nice little burg up in Massachusetts. And I would like to say that I fulfilled all their expectations, but I really didn't, and I wound up for the bulk of my adult life as a cab driver in Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, and I've done a number of different other things, and including a sort of an early retirement, courtesy of some health and disability issues back almost 20 years ago. And so about 2001, 2002, I discovered that the public libraries were supplying us with computers, and so I went in and I got very busy. I should also back up and add that when I was 27, I believed on Jesus. As a matter of fact, that's the reason I'm in Baltimore, because the only Christians the only Christians I knew were in Baltimore, and I came up to visit, and I wound up moving here. So that was quite a while back. And in 2001 or 2, I found the computer library, and I got busy, and I learned more about the Bible in 3 years than I had in the past 25. And so I'm here as a Christian, and to hopefully to give God a good reputation.
Mr. Dameon.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Dameon Byrd Jr.
Wait a minute, sir. Come on. You got to slow that down. Come back again. I haven't met this person.
So, my name is Dameon Byrd Jr. I go by Dame the Pioneer for a lot of people who know me and those who don't. You can check out my social media at Dame the Pioneer for all things Dame the Pioneer, which is many things, but as of recent, international motivational speaker, leadership facilitator, and artist. So that is, I have a love for community and for art and bridging the gap between those two things, and kind of helping us to get to a place of understanding within ourselves as a means to mental health, but also to inspire us to reach into other spaces to be able to do as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I, in having the conversation, we just finished talking, and these two gentlemen were two people who I thought would be good to collaborate and just share some ideas in terms of a conversation, in terms of self-care. So when I say self-care, what does that mean to you and to you? We can't answer the question, but I'll start over here.
Well, in the classic Christian sense, we regard our bodies as the temples that God lives in, and that He came to join us together as His people, and so we're a temple personally, and we're a temple together as the church, and it's not good to destroy the temple.
You see what happens. Dameon?
Yeah, so I approach self-care from a very natural space. I think that self-care for me definitely, I approach it from a very, I guess, ancestral place now, and finding ways to, I guess, what we call soothe our spirits. And I think that it's very important to make sure it is that when we're talking about self-care, and when it's dealing with self-care, we're also talking about being balanced, and what it means to be balanced, and that balance being nature itself. So
my point to kind of dedicate this month to self-care is because, again, this is around the holidays, it's getting a little bit colder, and we naturally want to hibernate. We can see by play over here, he likes to keep warm, but this is also the time where most of our holidays kind of collide. Culturally, a lot of our holidays kind of collide, and a lot of feelings of depression, feelings of loss from losing loved ones and family members and friends kind of resurface. And it's an extended period of time. It starts around like October, and it kind of gradually goes into that January, February, depending on how long before the animal sees the shadow.
Groundhog.
It kind of elongates to like March now. And I had went on a journey myself in the last maybe 5 years where I wanted to change how this time of year, how I felt. I didn't no longer wanted to kind of hunker down and just, you know, stay in the house a lot. I got tired of seeing friends go through things, and we lose people. We can't help that. We all have our expiration. But I wanted to change how people really dealt with, because that's the real issue, how we deal with stress. Stress is a natural body occurrence, and it's our way of kind of getting out whatever's stuck in us or whatever's just lingering around. So, but I wanted to help people as I'm helping myself, and as I learned how to help myself, kind of navigate the feeling part of it, and not put such a stigma on it, or not feel like we are so it's just the way it is, and this is who I am, and then you just keep taking that spiral, and then spring come, a different person, and then you go through the cycle of the year again, and you're back here in October, November again. I just wanted to curve that, because I figured out a way for myself to curve it, but that doesn't necessarily work for everybody else. But part of it was me understanding and becoming aware of my cycles and my change and my growth and my emotions, and getting more in tune with them and facing them more, and not just looking out the window at them, judging them, you know, from my high place, quote unquote high place. But I wanted to just understand who you all are, and had you gone through, because I know both of you share a story, not necessarily the same story, but both of you have a story where something happened that kind of changed the direction of who you are. And I'm gonna start over here with Mr. Dameon.
I would definitely have to say that it happened a while ago. I think it's happened more than once.
Right.
I think it's important to note that, because like you said, it's a cycle. So it's a cycle of perpetual growth.
Right.
But I think the thing that changed me, I think, was my first time being on the road. So I did, within 2 years, 2 national tours across the U.S., hitting 90 different cities across the United States. So every day was a different a tour stop where I went and, you know, spoke to students, spoke to, you know, stakeholders and stuff like that, and engaged in conversations around race relations, around social justice, and actually facilitated conversations around that in mental health. And so what I was starting to find out is that the things that we have in common, the things that nobody talks about, are the main things that separate us. So me having anxiety around going to a room full of white children in the middle of, you know, in the middle of Toledo, Ohio, and them not seeing a person that looks like me before, because nobody is around that looks like that, and having to have that conversation, you know, pulled out different stressors. But the thing that I started to realize while I was having my own anxiety moment, they were having anxiety around me too, because we hadn't been in close proximity with each other, and especially not for the time that we had. So like pulling out those things like anxiety, which is one of the things that I think that everybody, probably a good 90% of the human population, deals with some sort of anxiety at some certain point in their lives, whether that be because you were nervous before, you know, you played in a basketball game, or you were at a job interview. These are all sorts of different things, whether it comes up as nervousness, or I don't want to go out with my friends today because, you know, I think I'm feeling the blues. And those blues are okay. It's performance anxiety now, because I don't want to have to go out and make myself available or try to live up to whoever's expectations of the people that I'm around and things like that. So I think that for me, it's been one of those things of trying to be very internal about finding that inner peace and finding that happiness within myself. But it's also one of those things that my partner, my fiance, is definitely one of those people that helps foster that safe space, as well as, you know, my family as well.
So what are you personally doing? Because it's easy for, well, it's not always easy, but it's easier to look to outside sources. But what are those things that you are now doing to make sure, because of my triggers, because of my experiences, because of the things that leave me feeling outside of myself.
Right.
What are you then doing to maintain that and move forward from it?
Right.
So it doesn't become something that you just put on every day like you put your shirt on.
For sure. And it's definitely one of those things I think it's about being present in space. And so there's a part of you that shows up, whether that be to work or whether that be to family functions, to church, or what have you. A part of you shows up, but maybe not all of you shows up to that place. And that's just about how much of yourself you're giving. So one of the things that I do, especially when having conversations with people in order to manage my own energy, is that I pick and choose the interactions that I have.
Right.
As being a major thing, but I also do things like go outside and I ground, which is basically, go outside in the grass, in the dirt, and what they call earthing, and taking off your shoes and socks and standing outside in the grass for 15 minutes. It's one of those things that naturally helps you realign your energies, helps your body to naturally realign, and so you can literally feel that stress melt away. I've had it happen not just with myself, but also with other people, and looking into all those different aspects of decreasing stress in ways that didn't concern substances, and that didn't necessarily concern always looking for outside help. So like self-soothing or self-coping mechanisms like that. And then also writing is one of the things that I do a lot of as a writer, but even if it's just off the random, if you find a napkin or a piece of notepaper or something, getting out a thought out of your head and seeing it on a piece of paper is a good way to start to kind of mentally unclutter, your space in your mind. Because a lot of times we're usually stressed out about things that nobody else is stressed out about. Like whether that be you have to get to wherever you have to go on time, or whether that be you've got a commitment or whatever. Managing out your space mentally, just like you do with your computer or your emails. So managing those things out and kind of taking the time to dissect how it is that you feel, and look at the situation from a non-biased point of view. So it's introspective. So take yourself out of the situation and kind of look at all the pieces and then ask yourself, are all these things worth being stressed out about? Not to, not for the sense of not being validated in the things that are stressing, but to know that these things aren't things that you should be presently, perplexing your mental space for.
Is it difficult for you to, like in a moment where you may feel triggered or a moment where you may feel hyper stressed, how do you kind of talk yourself down when you have to, because you're an adult now?
Yeah.
So you can't just go sit in time out for a second.
Yeah, that don't.
But how do you deal with being an adult in these things, in adult situations where you're not necessarily maybe burning bridges or around people who may not get what's going on? How do you communicate that to other people so you don't become somebody that they don't want to be around? Got you.
I think that ultimately, like, it's just, I guess, being proactive. So in relationships, and whether that be with people, family, friends, letting people know ahead of time how it is that you're feeling, not because it's a momentous thing, but so that way they have a clear understanding and nobody feels like they've been disrespected or their time has been taken advantage of, or you just don't have any empathy towards how it is that they feel. Or because it can feel like that sometimes, where it's like you're so into whatever it is that you've got going on that you don't readily communicate that to other people. And so it can cause people, in my experience in life, to feel distanced from you, but it's also one of those things that's super necessary for you to be able to do in order to make sure that you're not bombarding yourself so much with everybody else's energy.
So you're kind of in that millennial space, and millennials get a bad rep for throwing their emotions on other people and expecting for people to care or want to deal with it or have to deal with it. And I am on the fence because I'm on the very end of millennial on this side. And
I'm right in the middle.
Right. And trying to navigate emotions and always be like, well, this ain't that person's feelings or problem. So how do I personally get through this? How do I personally deal with this? So is it hard for you to, and feel free to ask a question if you have one, how have you learned how to still be engaging other people and not be the typical millennial that just be like, this is my world and I'm gonna live in my bubble and I don't see nothing else around me. That level of almost selfishness that we sometimes as young people can perpetuate outward.
Well, I think it's the thing about just knowing yourself, because I think that a lot of people, we got a lot of terms to describe how it is that we feel internally and that have, been coined over the last 20 years that readily so are needed. So like people who consider themselves introverts and extroverts. These aren't terms that are empaths, right? These aren't terms that are new. But it's something that we have readily embraced.
We've figured out the definition now. Oh, that's me. I'm that. I'm that right there.
So once you do that, it's just like, man, I got to actually go ahead and take this test now. Okay, what's my love language? Like, how do I receive love? How do I give love?
And that further, in my opinion, further complicates what may be off with you. Because now I have a word to describe it, but it doesn't quite fit what I feel. So I gotta find something else, and I'm gonna topple this. And it's like taking all these medications, and nothing's helping you. At the end of the day, you know what to call it, but how are you fixing it?
Yeah.
Knowing how to define it or label it does not solve it.
No.
It does not heal it.
It doesn't, and I think that when we talk about mental health from that approach, and Western medicine has brought us a great deal of beautiful things, attached to a lot of bad practices in getting there, atrocities getting to the discoveries and stuff that have been made. But at the same time, it's definitely one of those things where, there are a lot of ways to deal with your mental health, and there are a lot of holistic practices and holistic therapists that you can go to where you don't have alternative medicines. And this doesn't go directly to like, oh yeah, because as soon as you say alternative, like people be like, yeah, marijuana, let's do it.
And it's been alternative medicine for a number of years now. Understand that.
For sure, but it's definitely one of those things, like I said. So aromatherapy, sages, meditating, things like that. Those are very centering, very grounding type of practices that I do all myself. So
we're gonna take a quick commercial break, pay some bills. I'm gonna figure what's going on with my live, and we'll be right back here with these two fine gentlemen when we return to the Artist Exchange Radio Show, only on BeExposedRadio.com. So feel free, both of you,
Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange. Artist.
This unknown to find who we really are. Crash into something new and take a break from our broken heart. Talk with the hip, tell me you lie. I think we should go for another round. Baby, try not to say too much. Let your love come down. If you wanna rule, it's some rules you gotta live by. Live by. Stay true to your cool, make a move. Don't wait on nobody else. And if it feels like a melody, sing a song we my radio. And if you follow me there, I'll follow you back. Let the night unfold. know she couldn't. Hands off of me. Touching hands till we dance in the dark. Showing off she couldn't. Hands off of me. We do whatever you like. Hands off of me. I know she couldn't. Hands off of me. So let's slide, you and me alone, to find who we really are. Crash into something new. I got ballet banging up the car. Throw me a kiss, tell me you lie. I think we should go for another round. Baby, I wanna take you, but we gotta groove so we can lose the crowd. If you wanna rule, there's some rules you gotta live by. Live by. Stay true to your cool, make a move.
Listen to this flashback of Skyline Radio Show.
So where we at? Where we talk about the effects and what's going on in these schools.
Yeah.
And what people don't understand. Just real briefly, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what people say bullying is or is not. So bullying comes in many forms. It's a teasing, it's the cyberbullying, it's the texting, it's the phone calls, it's the posting of pictures and people's personal information to pretty much cause them harm, to have them feel insecure. It's the sex assaults that people actually put out there. There are physical assaults, and there are mental assaults and emotional assaults. And what I like to remind individuals that any aggressive behavior towards anyone that is unwanted and unwarranted, and an individual asks you to stop. Let's stop there. Stop.
And they should be respecting that.
Respecting that and respecting yourself, because when you're able to respect another person, you're able to respect yourself. And the way that you're able to show that respect is that you know that you have a gift and you know you're uniquely made and that you matter, and then you also acknowledge that the next person beside you matters as well.
Right.
You know, and we lose that sometimes. Bullying is a behavior that underestimates the lives and legacy of you. I'm sure when they was bullying me, and I'm sure when they was bullying you, they didn't understand who you're going to become later on. I didn't know.
Right, because I'm popping. I can't pop. All right, let me tell you, all those people who felt like they wanted to say whatever to me, look at me now. It's like, no, y'all don't understand, but I've been through some things, okay?
And you know what? No. I applaud you and I salute you, because a lot of times we do not take the time to say, I'm okay, and I'm okay with me, and there's nothing wrong with me, and I'm amazing, and I'm blessed, and I'm strong, and I matter.
Join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. for Skyline Radio Show, only on BeExposedRadio.com.
Like keys only have this bitch jumping.
Okay. If I sit around, hold up. Look. If I sit around, hold up.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Welcome back to the Artist Exchange Radio Show, here live only on BeExposedRadio.com. We spoke a lot with Mr. Dameon in the last segment, but I wanted to bring it over here to Mr. Dave and ask him the same question.
Which, it's a long time ago you asked it.
But I'm asking you, so what do you do personally for you in terms of your self-care? That helps you. If you can turn out a little bit.
Sure.
So
yes.
What do you do personally? I know it's a little different, but we kind of move the conversation forward.
I would say that I'm really a slow starter. I mean,
the tortoise in the head.
You know, it's I don't have any real banners to wave about my success in life, but what I'm finding out is that there are boundaries, and it's good to stay inside the boundaries. I think I had a kind of a natural talent for that as a child. I certainly pushed the limits to that more than a few times, and I've been bruised from the results. And
growing pains.
Yeah, I've been bruised. Without saying any more about it except this, I've been incarcerated because of it. And yes, and I mean, life is real, and you go outside the boundaries, and you can get hurt inside, or what appears to be inside boundaries, but
playing it safe.
It's I mean, there's the boundaries that we sort of expect to be around our own homes with our own families, and you can go outside, inside, but anyways, I don't want to get too crazy about all this. But anyways, so my approach is really I'd say on two levels, and one is to pursue God as a person, and in the Christian sense as three persons, and also to live a more controlled life, which is can be anything as simple as getting to bed at the same time every night, to be eating more, a lot less sugar, and now at my age, carbohydrates, and I mean, I've learned some things about diet recently. They say that your body actually responds in such a way that if you love donuts and you walk by the donut shop and you smell the donuts, that your body will literally on its own begin to produce carbohydrates, and you can gain weight by smelling donuts.
Don't do that. See, that's the reason why people become hermits.
So I gotta stay away from the chocolate shop. That's where I gotta stay away from. But anyways,
is that why I love chicken so much? My body just naturally just.
There's a chicken place at the top of our street, and you can smell it coming down the hill.
Smell it.
It travels.
Oh, that was one of the reasons I always wanted to live near Fells Point.
Yeah.
And I can't because of the bread factory.
Oh, yeah.
So I would probably be like 900 pounds if I lived down there. Just thinking about it.
I'd just be they got that store that's right there, like the market store.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You just go right there.
Like the rye bread is just like.
It's fresh.
I got a thing for rye bread. I'm sorry.
Me too. Rye bread, corned beef.
So, part of like my mission right now is not necessarily binding people together, but I think that's naturally who I am. But it's more so conversations that we are not comfortable with having about ourselves. I think we're more open to healing if we had somebody across from us or next to us that could express things that we didn't necessarily think about, or we would think that that person would be going through what I'm going through. And that's kind of what I'm trying to kind of peel back the layers of the onion with this month. And we can banner it with self-care, but we've all, as we both are already starting to speak about things that have happened to you or how we react to each other. And I tease him a lot for being a millennial because I'm on the other side of it, I believe, and you're kind of in the middle-ish range of it, and it's still different from me. It's me just looking at certain things and understanding things a certain way. How we choose to heal is very important to me in terms of how I see people and what I can do for people, how I can help people rather. And I want to turn the conversation into a different perspective and talk about what do you see outside of yourself in terms of people you come across, people you've met, people you don't know, things you've heard in terms of the dangers of avoiding self-care. And not necessarily purposely avoiding it, but not really thinking about, like you said, going to bed at a certain time.
Yeah.
Some people need that strict regimen. I know I do because I wake up every morning like I just went to bed. And that's horrible to feel like that. But that's the reality because we are so busy now. But what are some of the things that you see outside of yourself that aren't necessarily the best for self-care? You want to name names?
Well, ideally, I mean, seriously, ideally, we ought to be able to get through life without really, without an aspirin, without even a drink. Although they say 2 drinks a day won't hurt you, it'll help you, but.
Is that drink flammable?
But so I think that and I until from age 17 until I got together with Jesus, I smoked pot as much as I could.
Do you see it as wrong now, or I should not indulge in that?
I'm not going to say that it's wrong in the most absolute sense. Who am I? But I will say that as with alcohol, I think there are people who don't handle it well. And I heard one gentleman say that he estimated that 1 out of 4 people doesn't handle it well. And it may very just well be true that people who are on the who might be defined as having mental health issues may be those who are not handling it well.
We're using it for the wrong reasons.
Well, I don't know. There are medical reasons, they say, and I'm kind of curious about that because I hear it helps with pain. But getting high recreationally is, life is difficult and life has pain, but
recreational normally means for fun.
Yeah.
But if you are doing it to cover up something else, that's not necessarily for fun.
Yes.
Or for medical reasons or medicinal reasons. That's aside from fun, but recreational normally means you're doing it to have fun.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to cover up some type of hurt or pain, then you're kind of abusing it.
Yeah.
Versus recreationally enjoying it.
I remember seeing a film, it might have been National Geographic or something, but I believe it was the people in Nepal. It's called the hemp plant, that's marijuana. And apparently they use it heavily in their cooking. And they just look very happy. They just look like just not a care in the world out of them. And
they have no cares built into them now. Sir?
Are we going to stay in that space? Because
I'm afraid for you to say that.
We can bubble around. What was the question?
So what are some things outside of yourself that you see that aren't as helpful for either your self-care or just self-care in general?
I definitely think any substance, for sure, at any type of, extreme quantities, not even just extreme, but any type of quantities that's not, rivaled by you just literally like you said, recreational, like, hey, well, this is enjoyment, but any quantity of, I'm smoking every day just to smoke. I think it needs to be evaluated for sure, because like you said, there is people, and I don't know what the numbers are, statistics behind it with people who don't handle it well, but I personally know people who I've smoked with before or whatever over time, and they're like, I don't want to ever smoke again. And it's not a lot of them, but it's a couple people who are like, I'm drinking tonight, and then you look and you turn around and that person's drinking like tequila or vodka. And you're just like, I don't know how you doing that. Like, I've got,
I'm drunk by watching you.
Right. So, and so I come from, and I think a lot of people know, so I come from a very big mostly Christian family in Baltimore. The Blakes, Jacksons situation. and shout out to the Byrds all over the country, this, that, and the other. But for the most part, our family is probably I guess liberal might be a good word, but free-spirited family that you could be a part of. That
it's a precursor to the next part of the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, and this because like I think that they handle a lot of things as far as that.
I thought you were about to say they handle their liquor a different. I don't know why I thought that was about to go.
That was not even, man. Thanksgiving is like next week. Can't even bring the greens no more. Oh God.
You're banned from now on.
They're already looking at me sideways because I'm putting turkey in the greens. Like.
Oh yeah. Because you might just have greens.
It's smoked turkey necks. Okay. Smoked is not. Yeah. But anyway, that being said, I do think that people do use marijuana to go ahead and deal with mental stress as a way, because a lot of people, it comes down to an economic barrier.
Right.
So your access to mental, health, whether that health care, whether that be therapy or a doctor and stuff like that, is super, super limited. I don't know a lot of people. I know a lot of people with insurance, and I know a lot of people who ain't never seen an insurance company, information portfolio, anything about, getting it. Even though we have the Affordable Health Care Act or Obamacare and stuff like that, it's still.
So it's no excuse anymore.
Yeah, it used to be an excuse. But I do think it's a thing that we're still not presently like, oh yeah, hey, let me grab a friend. We're all 12 of us are going to rush into therapy. But you might grab 5 of your friends and say, hey, we're going to go and grab marijuana because we live in a decriminalized state and DC's down the street. Or anywhere else you'd like to go within Baltimore City
that you have heard about.
That you've heard about and stuff. Somebody, cousin Ray somewhere got a bag or something for, and even then, like, there's so much, I think now there's so much awareness around marijuana and the uses for marijuana therapeutically and medicinally. So like Rastafarians do teas. There's a lot of different people, herbalists, that do a lot of different things with it. So smoking marijuana is just not the only way for people to be able to get that medication. I know a lot of people that have rheumatoid arthritis and things of that nature that takes care of that completely off the table and so many other things.
So it's a lot of bills that we have to pay. So we're going to quickly go take some bills and get back to the conversation because it's about to get a little different. So definitely come on back. The Artist Exchange Radio Show with Mr. Dameon Byrd
Jr. Byrd Jr. That's why I had to say
And you said it, and I still looked at you and said Beard.
That's cool.
Mr. Byrd.
Dame the Pioneer.
And Mr. Dave. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Take a minute and listen to this flashback of the Artist Exchange Radio Show.
Any trouble, because I get into any trouble, but I had a problem that this then became a discussion at that workplace environment. Now, the discussion was I should have been more sensitive. In what way was my first response? And I guess when I had to meet with that said person who had the issue with the person who was said leader of that organization.
Okay.
I said, well, to that person, how would I have known that? Well, you should have asked.
I think so. You want my opinion?
It was a circle, and I was willing to go on that merry-go-round.
You are better than most.
Yeah.
I think that's normal when you're in a group and there's norming. Most of the time when you're in new work environments or you're in a space where you're getting to know people, it's normal now to ask for people's preferred pronouns. You wouldn't have known that.
Normal to who? What is normal?
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Artist Exchange Live.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Starts now.
You never see the person who lives in Iowa, and they're going through the exact same, situations.
It's really unfortunate, and that's going to take us into our next conversation that we were having in terms of, because one of the reasons that I thought this would be like interesting was because you have a real open-minded way of thinking, despite being raised in such a narrow way.
I was going to say I was the black sheep, but I didn't want to be like, nah, y'all, I'm out here. I'm myself. The gray sheep is over there. That's Kayla.
She kind of borderline.
She's like, Kayla's the bridge when I start, and I'm like, I am.
Talk to him for me. Just go.
Yes. Today's Indigenous Peoples Day. Kayla's like, okay, it's Thanksgiving, guys, but it was not a good way that Thanksgiving started. Yeah.
But Dave, on the other hand, has for the last 44 years, been more faith-based.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't know if it's fair to give you the label, but more Christian conservative or conservative Christian.
It's God gives boundaries, and it's, you know, I mean, I think one of the objections people have to faith in the Lord Jesus is they think if they, you know, gee, if I join the church, I won't have any fun anymore.
But I think,
and that's really it's. I understand that because I had a lot of fun as a heathen.
But you were supposed to not bring those heathen ways to the church, but you were supposed to come as you are. So the personality you had didn't necessarily change.
No, it was a road, it was a journey, and it's not done yet. You know, it's certainly not done yet.
It's still a work in progress.
Oh Lord, you know.
I feel like it's not. We all have faith. Because the moment something drastic happens, even if you're fighting to pray, you're going somewhere to kind of calm yourself or pray for or pray, you know, about or meditate over, whatever you call it. I don't think it's the lack of faith. I think it's more so faith cannot tell me who to be. Faith cannot determine my everyday existence, i.e. some of the major topics that we have, whether it be birth control or sexual preference or those things. I think that is where it becomes a problem for people who aren't necessarily of a faith. And I think that's where it becomes, we all, without agreeing often or not knowing, all practically believe the same thing. Be a good person, be good to other people, show everybody love. I think that's kind of like the foundation. Love is kind of the foundation of every religion, no matter where you are. It's just how you choose to show it or how you choose to practice it. And that's just, in me studying religion, growing up in the Catholic school system, studying all different types of faiths. It shocked me the first time I heard the minister Louis Farrakhan say Jesus' name in a sentence. Like, I was like, I didn't know you all believed that too. And it was just shocking to me. Not understanding that Jehovah's Witnesses believe practically the same thing. It's just how we practice our religion. And the thing is, those other things that faith has told us, you must do this. When the law simply says, this can't tell this what to do. It's legally written in our way of contracts and constitution. This faith cannot tell this citizen what to do. And I think that begins to be the problem for people. Faith, we all believe in God or whatever you call that entity. But it's just those fundamental things when it comes to my body and my person that a faith is telling me I can't do. Even if I don't believe in that faith. Is telling me what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think that, and it happens on the other extreme as well. the total liberal. No, we need rules. This is what governs our life. We need those fundamental things because things will then go haywire. We are not to be trusted with our own vices or our own, ideals. That's why we have laws and constitutions and such, because we're not to be trusted to be, I can't just have a grocery store with no security or no tellers. We need those people so people wouldn't just go in there and take what they want and leave out. So I think on both sides we're not understanding how rules are necessary, but policing is not. And that, for lack of better words, but that's kind of what faith has become, a policing agent, a moral police system.
Today in the Christian church, let me say in a fairly large segment of it, people are saying it's not about religion. That's no religion. No, I'm going to sneeze. Just get out of my face.
Okay. So we don't slip and say something.
Yeah. We don't want religion anymore. And what they're saying is we don't want a checklist. Do this, do that, do this, do that, that. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, that, don't do that. We don't want a checklist because anybody can write a checklist. Any preacher can write a checklist.
And that's you get into, I think, the meat and potatoes of it. It's not the checklist because I think to some degree, we all have already inserted a way of life. Just traditional, but it's the person. I don't want that person who has done X, Y, Z, or somebody who wants a private jet, somebody who has molested a child.
It's not
to tell
easy
me how to live.
Yeah, it's not easy for me to come out against marijuana, having smoked it for almost 10 years, as much as I could. But nonetheless, I think it's something that people can do without, and might, if they're inclined to try to do without, try it.
So the issue with marijuana, how different is that from penicillin?
Penicillin is intended to heal.
But isn't research now showing that marijuana is
if you have a medical cause to use marijuana, I don't have a problem with that.
It's just
if your doctors, if the law of the land and the medical community allow, I don't have a problem with that in the slightest.
So it's more so the things that are connected with
intoxication, because we all know
violence has come as a result
what happens when people get. They say that there were armies that smoked hashish in huge quantities to prepare for battle, and hey. Just saying.
Yeah, but for sure, and I think it's like a thing now. Yeah, for sure. I think it's a thing now, and I think it's some relevance there because historically, that's something that we've tied culturally into our existence as people. I think they said the first time that Kush popped up that they saw. It was in a mummy, and they went ahead and they did a DNA analysis of the mummy's hair because all the hair and everything was intact, and they found opioids mixed, so cocaine, marijuana, and tobacco inside of this mummy's bloodstream, meaning that they were smoking marijuana from the Middle East or from East India or Southeast Asia, and at the same time we're smoking it in the tobacco leaves from North America and cocaine from Southeast Asia as well, during a time period where Christianity in ourselves wasn't in existence, per se. If we talk about historically,
we know it to be.
Yeah, what we know it to be. So and so now it's a thing where we talk about whether or not us interfering with people and how it is that they choose to live in that way. If it is because, just going to marijuana, I think the majority of people that I know for a fact that there's a slightly younger generation right below millennials, and especially younger millennials as well, who have drifted into that space of using I guess, pill form drugs or prescription drugs or non-prescription drugs, Molly, ecstasy, stuff like that. Synthetics, stuff like that. And you got like the rest of the millennials, even their, their peers, our peers too, and you like, you in a whole nother lane of a substance abuse situation or a crisis that you're having that. So,
but I think it looks weird to us because we're used to. I'm not gonna say personally. Well, I can say my uncles and some of my aunt and uncles, but we're used to that age range using it.
Yeah.
But it's not a phenomenon for teenagers and 20-somethings to be doing it. That's where the 70s and the 60s, and that's where that came. I'm not saying that's where it came from, but they were doing it at that age. They were our age and much younger doing it. So I think it just looks weird for a 20-some-year-old to be nodding out. It just looks weird.
Oh, it looks weird for anybody to be nodding out.
But it's at such a larger scale, and it's people who you wouldn't normally have seen it happening to.
I've seen teenagers standing up, sleep.
No, they fully awake. They just gone somewhere.
Yeah.
Temporary time.
So like that. So in itself, I think that's definitely a thing. But spiritually, and for me, like I think it's a definite thing where I find a lot more of my peers who are. And I read an article about it on Blavity, where it was basically saying a lot of people are reverting, not even away from any of the one particular religion, but reverting back from religions that weren't ancestral to them, and starting to practice different spiritual systems and getting into those spiritual systems, finding out that tobacco leaves and marijuana leaves and marijuana and pot are things that are ritualistic. In that way, the same way that if you go to a Catholic church or an Episcopal church and they burn, incense as the priests walk in to the church in that same way. So I think it is it's definitely a spectrum of what that looks like in healthy usage of how it is that people congregate, because that's another thing that I think we talk about now, but the sense of community. And not saying like, oh man, well yeah, it's the potheads are the only ones to get together. But the thing about people getting together, period, as a way to combat mental health, because of that sense of belonging or that sense of inclusion, and so like that is another coping mechanism that kind of gets people out of that space of like, what are the bad things? At the same time, too much of that is a bad thing. So
gluttony.
It's like, oh well, yeah, I'm going to this bar every Saturday night, and even if you don't drink nothing, every Saturday night that you go, the fact that you went and said, yeah, I just went because I wanted to spend $1,000 to go get dolled up for just that one day, and you did that every week this month. And not that anybody realistically, nobody's going to spend $1,000 and be like, yeah, a month. That I know, if you got it, that's great.
Some people
more
can.
to you. I look expensive, but hit me up on Instagram and ask me where I got my outfit from, because I promise you'll be like, oh my gosh. And then if you ask or tell somebody else, I'm like, yo, we never had that conversation. Don't know what you're talking about. My budget's $10,000.
So I really, I wanted to start this way, but I wanted it to naturally get to that point. So in the last segment, we kind of disclosed where we came from politically, and I think would never be considered a conservative in my political viewpoints. But how does your being a conservative Christian define your politics?
Well,
or is that just about your religion? Because I think it's confusing in the media.
The thing, well, there's that old lovely saying, it is what it is. And, you find yourself at any moment in time just being who you are, regardless of how how much I got into this or that or the other. You know, I'm here, so here I am, and the conservative side of it is that for me is that I'm definitely pro-life, because I'm glad my mama had me in spite of all the hard road that I've been on, you know, and your mama had you, and you know, we're all here, and it's just a little bit, to me, it's just a little bit, it's even self-defeating mentally, I think, when we come to the point where we're willing not only to consider but to take the life of the, you know, and I can't speak as a woman, but as if I don't have children that I know of. I was 20. I was
10 long years.
I was 27 when but you know, it's like I can't conceive of marrying or even just getting any girl pregnant and then wanting to take the child's life. I know someone very close to me who's done that, and it felt like a deprivation that child was not in my life. But that's kind of a selfish thing, but still, I mean, it's, you know, we do these things, and if, you know, thou shalt not murder seems to me to be really apply. I mean, that's a boundary, you know, that's a boundary that nobody here wants to step out on Saratoga Street and catch a bullet, whether it's intended or unintended. So it's so politically, I'm pro-life, and I think that a lot of political things are exaggerated, but I think there's some wisdom to in the world that we live in. There's some wisdom to trying to understand who it is that's coming into our country from other nations. I mean, that Boston bombing, it's been in the news lately because there's now another crime that's related to it, and those two fellows were from what are they? I guess you'd call it Middle Asia. They were from not Chechnya. I can't remember where they're, Uzbekistan, but and they got into the country, and they messed us up pretty good, and 9/11 messed us up really good, or really bad, and so I think it's wise in this day and age to be, you know, there's the thing about citizenship that it's an identity thing, you know. Are we willing at this point to identify as an American? Am I willing to say I'm an American? There was a time when I was not. There was a time when I was against the Vietnam War, and I was, you know, felt just that things were not right. I'm not uncomfortable now being identified in my earthly journey as an American. It's not nearly as important though as being as being part of God's kingdom, and I just we would like for there to be, what is this saying? Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. And you know, if we really want it, I think we can have it. But we can't have it unless we're willing to, you know, work for that thing, and not for. I'm not even saying I know what peace is. All I'm saying is for you or for you, but all I know is that it's not beating each other bloody either with our fists or with our tongues.
So we're gonna go to a quick commercial break because I feel a response, but it's not anything, you know, fighting, but I wanted to go a little bit deeper, and I don't know if you have any questions, so think about it. We'll be right back, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back, don't go anywhere. One of listening to you talk.
I'll be up in the way. 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 Running on my face. Gucci guilty on my face. I'll be up in the way. 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 Bedroom phone ring, girl in t-shirt answers me. I get off on the way that she answers me. First time saw her, I knew she was the one for me. Ever since then, we've been vibing on some chemistry. It's just a matter of time. I know she feeling my vibe. I got the keys to the ride. She put her hands on my thigh. She got that look in her eye. SL what I'm riding. Royalty, call me highness. All day and overnighted. Cause it's crunch time when I'm grinding. This Adderall got me nauseous. Proceed with caution. Tired of lanes, I'm exhausted. Poppin' Zanny Zan, sipping out the faucet. I'm confused, don't know what I'm doing. Wait, what I'm doing? Got me going where the I'm going. Out of space where I'm going. Wait, where I'm going? Wait, where I'm going? Out of space where I'm going. Out of space where I'm going. I'll be up in the way. 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 Running on my face. Gucci guilty on my face. I'll be up in the way. 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 Can I talk to you? I've been working hard. I've been up all night. I just been so high. I feel nothing off the sands. Withdrawals killing me. I need something to sleep. Need you on top of me. I need to get high. Dreams designer all night. Chanel should be haunting my dreams. Wearing my clear on my sleeve. I'm not who you need me to be. Indigo sound for the team. Royalty sound for the team. Hippie vibing for the team. I need space, girl. I need to get out, yeah. Slow my motions. Leaning, I've been out, yeah. Never worry about me. I've been chillin'. Can't do this no more. I'm in my feeling. Can't put your business all out in the open. Can't fix a heart that's already been broken. You changed my ways, I'm already hopeless. I take my time, I figure it out, girl. You know you are. I'll be up in the way. 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 Running on my face. Gucci guilty on my face.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
To be able to go ahead and facilitate a space, because it's like you're organizing a space. This is something that you're putting together, and so like your vulnerability to this space is different.
Yeah.
So, you know.
But I'll preface that by saying, first, we're back, but this space for me is an open forum for people to be able to express themselves in a way where what I believe is mine.
Yeah.
It belongs to no one else. I'm sharing it with you as a courtesy, but I want people to be able to share, because part of the whole self-care thing, if we can't be honest about who I really am, we're showing up as our representatives.
Exactly.
And that's unsafe.
Yeah.
Because we are constantly not expressing who we are.
It's called
change is not happening.
That's called hypocrisy.
Right, because you're doing as much as you can to be safe. You're doing as much as you can to be safe, and there's no real conversation happening. We're just talking about, the price of tea in China, and they're like, I really want to say that, but we don't give ourselves that opportunity. Here on the Artist Exchange, on Big Exposed, we want that to happen. We want that exchange of conversation to happen, because if you really want change, if you're really for change, if you really are a force behind your beliefs, then you have to be honest about what you believe and be okay being wrong, being okay to change your mind, being okay to buckle down and say, no, I'm not wavering from this. But being honest.
Yeah.
And not being afraid to not let those things happen. And part of where my self-care is, I have to tell you the truth. And it may seem like I'm being angry or bitter or, petty, but I have to say the truth. Because if I keep that truth inside of me, only thing that's coming out is a lie. No matter how small the lie or big the lie, it's a lie nevertheless. And now you and I have a problem with each other because I'm not being honest with you. So now you're wondering, and you'll always wonder whenever you come around me, is he telling the truth? Should I believe what he's saying? But now where I'm at, and I think I'm growing into my older man self, I have to be that honest. I'm learning how to, give it to you with a scoop of sugar, but I'm learning how to definitely say it to you in a way where it's beneficial for us and not just me looking out of a window at you, judging you. But I definitely, it's that idea of mirror reflection versus window.
Yeah.
I don't ever speak to myself and not realize there's other people around, but I don't want to be on that high pedestal looking down out the window at people, just judging people either.
Oh yeah.
But that's just where I'm at for conversation. So feel free. I don't feel anything less.
Oh yeah, no.
A setup, but more so just a step to kind of clear the air.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I said that because I think like in conversations, a lot of times the reasons that those conversations don't happen outside of spaces like this is because people feel the need to not put themselves in the space or to be level,
right? Or higher, so like that's the thing that happens, and so that balance does and is off. But to the point we were talking about, I am independent, so. What does that mean, though?
Yeah.
You say these things, but they meant something totally different.
Politically, you're saying?
Yeah, so because he was asking like politically, like how does your...
I'm actually registered and independent.
Yeah, so like that's
in the midst of being a conservative.
Yeah. So my thing, and I think I see a lot more of it. Like I know a lot for a fact that my friends, even though we don't talk about it, like, I know I'm voting for today. And then if they choose not to vote today, that's literally their preference. But I do think it's a thing where when it comes down to how it is that I feel, I do find myself as an advocate for women's rights, specifically black women, because those are the ones who I encounter every day. And that I feel like I can do the most for. Sure. But at the same time, for all women's rights, but black women is who I advocate for, because the things that happen, as far as the things they go through, are things that directly mirror what I'm experiencing.
Right.
So that being said, so when it comes to things like that, I often do think back to, okay, I was the result of teen pregnancy. My mom graduated high school at 18 in 1992, and she is now a firefighter. She's at work now. I think she's tuning into the show.
Hey, Mom.
Hey, Mom.
She's a firefighter.
Yes. So she's her and my uncle have been firefighters for the last 15 years. But she is the first black woman to become a firefighter in the new millennium. And so when I get to look at, when I actually get to look at what that means to me, I know for a fact she's delivered like 50 babies or something like that. And not all of those babies have been in situations that they were ready for. And like there's been some cases, especially in the city we live in, where she's encountered patients and individuals who, like you said, were under the influence of whether that was a crack mom who was literally pregnant and high on dope or something like that, but also experiencing people whose homes were literally burnouts, and that was the situation that a baby was born into. So coming from that situation, but also having the experience of being from a teen pregnancy, I think that it was like an article or something that came up and was like, if if you had the chance to not be born in order for your parent to have lived whatever life it is that they were deciding for themselves. So if you were, would you, A, say, yeah, well, I would do it, not because you don't love your own life, but scenarially wise, if it happened another way, if you had the choice to be here or not be here, so that way they could literally live and develop, because at the time, even though my mom was 18, she's also the oldest of 5 brothers and sisters, and then like one of like 100 and some odd cousins. So very well supported family, and she was definitely cultured and trained to make sure it is that she was taking care of her household well before she had kids. So like that was one of those things that she had a better hand at than a lot of other teen moms. But at the same time, I know a lot of teen moms like just recently found out that I had a little sister. This is like the second time I'm finding out that I had another little sibling, and she's a beautiful individual, and I have never met her yet, and I plan on meeting her. But basically, without putting too much of my personal business on the street, my dad, I guess 15 years ago, when I was a kid, he ended up getting a girl pregnant. And so he ended up getting this girl pregnant. She was a college student, and she was white. And she was in Georgia, and she went back home from, the college for the year or whatever, and hey, I'm pregnant. And so what ended up happening is she went home, and her parents was like, so who's the father? And because it is that my father is a black man, because it is that he was considerably older than her, and she was in college, they were like, we're definitely not keeping the baby. But they didn't want the baby, they didn't want to not have her, to abort it. And so because of that, the flip side of that is that my little sister got adopted by a lovely couple, but they live in Seattle, Washington. Wow. So my little sister, who probably wouldn't be here otherwise had she been aborted, ended up with a family that, couldn't have kids, and that had adopted more than one child. So it was a positive outcome, but at the same time, it could end up way worse. Right. There's just not to say like, oh, well, we're going straight to the media, we're going straight to sources of incidents where adoptions, incidents where people who've had I guess alleyway abortions, things like that have happened because it is that they can't have access to abortion, or can't have access at least to the care to be able to have that therapy, like you said, because that is available. There's two sides to Planned Parenthood. There's a side that we all know about, and there's a side that we don't talk about or seldomly use. So one of those sides definitely highlights what happens after an abortion happens, or what happens to the human body parts, or the fetus, or even if it's a zygote. Like, we place those all in the same category when we're talking about those type of issues. And so when we talk about that, that's one side of it, but the other side is family planning. So if you don't have kids yet, or if you are a teenager, like, I don't know, I know for a fact that we had sexual education in our school barely. But I know for a fact that nobody ever said, hey guys, we're taking a trip to Planned Parenthood to not, go to the abortion clinic. You know what I mean? But like, we're having a representative from, the clinic come in to talk about X, Y, and Z, to talk about family planning, home economics, those things, those elementary things or fundamental things are things that we don't have now. And so because of that, we have, different disparities, where I see there's half my friends who have multiple kids, and then there's another half of my friends that don't have any. And we ain't planning on having any for a while. And it's like one of them things like, man, I made it past 18, no kids. Made it past 21, we still living out here in these streets. 25, whew. Okay, I'm sweating, but I'm still in the race. And I love all my nieces and nephews and godchildren and babies and all that stuff alike.
But the fact that that's a thing, there's a way to prevent that.
Yeah.
Like, that's the part that I think when I hear people have those conversations, just even on the side of diseases, it's a way to prevent it. Not having sex or having protected sex. Like, there's a way to do it. And I know we're all living in a natural world where I want to feel what I feel. and not a barrier. But the result of that could be detrimental to just your everyday life or your health or your mental. Like, it's easy fixes. And we also know people who have used it as a vending machine. Like, oh, damn, I messed up that night. Let me pull this lever, and oop, I'm good now. And we see the mental breakdown that they have because most times they've gone back multiple times to go to that same fix. But it's an idea that we are not using common sense. You don't have to live that way. You don't have to have that pleasurable addiction. You don't have to have those things. That's a choice that you're making.
Yeah.
It sounds like a thought was coming from over here.
Yeah, God wanted a big family. You know, and in the beginning he said male. He made it male and that's all right. That's all right. He said male and I'm going to make them in my own image, male and female. That's a mind blower. Just to start, that there's male and female both in the image of God. And then he said to him, he says, I want you to be fruitful and to multiply, and have dominion over the earth. And you know, he literally in Christian thinking, and to me, which is, you know, reality, God really made this whole thing. He made it for people. He made it for us. It was an extraordinary thing, and but in order, I think in order to make sure that we would be fruitful and multiply, he hardwired into us our sexuality, which assured us that we would enjoy it enough to have children, and
Trick us enough.
it was look, if you don't think kids are, but anyways, it's, you know, it's all, the Bible is it's a huge, amazing book. But anyways, so I don't think there's any question that we were going to have a lot of kids in the world, and the thing is, how is it that we lost our way to the point where, you know, we would just, well, you know, the crazy thing is, you know, 3 chapters after God made us, Cain killed Abel, hit him in the head with a rock, they say. So I mean, it went from eating a piece of fruit to burying your brother. I mean, and it's like, you know, so there just isn't any. To me, there just isn't any other way to explain this thing that we're in. I have not looked deeply into other religions. I have not done it. I know a little bit about this, that, and the other, but
is there a fear in doing so? Because I know a lot of practicing Christians who just cut themselves off from education, because you'll realize, and I think our current Pope is doing that. He is looking outside of what has been and starting to say these things don't add up. We're all the same people, and just fundamentally love each other. And it's crazy that the Pope is doing it, but none of the people underneath his, I don't want to say reign, that's real crazy, but under his jurisdiction will take a step and learn something that you probably already know, but just afraid to say, oh, we're the same person or people.
I mean,
that's an assumption.
For me, it goes back to that space, because, and this is speaking from a strictly spiritualist perspective, because I'm not a Christian anymore. How do I know? I came out with a permatan, and I was just like, it's some things I need to check out. So that was kind of where that personal search for my spirituality.
Did you find similarities?
I found complete similarities, and I found a lot of historical documentation that both support and don't support, you know, a lot of different religions, not because of, you know, anyone's particular faith, but definitely because of different people's interpretations of them. So like for me, it's definitely been one of those things that, you know, when I talk about or think about sexuality or think about those things, even as a straight man, I also think about China. I also think about the population of China. So when we talk about where people are allowed to live, or when we just talk about being populated or the ability to be populated, I also think about overpopulation. I also think about, you know, mass murdering of people from the LGBTQ community. There's no, like, we have numbers, but we don't have numbers on how many of those people, especially people of color from that community, that disappear all the time. Not just because, like, oh, well, you know, they were born and they just decided, well, you know, I lived a good life and it was gone, but because they are literally facing those atrocities. But also because...
Is that in China?
Well, now I'm talking about here. So, like, in China, you can only have one child. So if it is that you have more than one child, you either get arrested or they take the baby. So a lot of times what happens is they'll keep the male child because they can get more opportunity and get further in life. And then if it's a daughter that is born first, they'll ban them in the street.
So let's pause, because I'm going to pick this up. We're going to take another quick commercial break, pay some bills. We'll be right back here on the Artist Exchange Radio Show, only on BeExposedRadio.com. See, this is an example of what happens when you just let things.
Like, the one thing you always gotta remember is people gonna try to project their insecurities onto you. But you can't listen to what them niggas saying. You gotta get out here and do your shit regardless. You gonna do what you love for the rest of your life anyway. So why not turn that shit into something? Be a man of everything you say. This shit bigger than me, man. Like, yeah, I'm good and all that, but you know what I mean? I ain't shit without y'all. Feel me? So no matter what you up against, go hard. Don't matter. Can you imagine how I really having nothing is? Stomach growling, you ain't got no food in the fridge. Surviving on a jail diet of water and bread. No father figure, that's cause my father dead. Mom's bringing different niggas in and out the crib. No money, so you seen it's less than all your friends. But it a joke because your mother was a crackhead. Older sister hoeing off, giving all our
Exposed Radio.
Well, if you made them, take care of them.
Yeah, that's
period.
Real. Right. That's the real deal.
It's period.
Right. And all that old money shouldn't go toward this, money should go to. If the child is with one of the parents 24/7, 7 days a week, you don't even come get your child every day. You come get your child once a month maybe, or once every 3 months.
Right.
You cannot dictate where that money goes, especially if the child ain't calling you about nothing. Now, if the child calling you every week, then you can question about where the child support is going. But if every time you pick up the child, they look nice, they ain't complaining about nothing, why are you worrying about where the money go at?
It is what it is. Radio show.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
You have to get it, Friday Ignatius, because he refused to want to understand what another religion thought, because his faith was on his faith, and learning anything else would distract me and may taint me.
Yeah.
But if you want to really get good, if you look at it as a salesperson or a person that got quotas, I need to get as many people to my faith as possible. But I should want to know how they think, how they learn, because all religions most religions aren't cultural. Most religions are just within the Christian faith. Most of the Christian faith is, I don't like the way you're teaching. I'm going to take these principles and go start me a church over here. So now instead of Episcopal, I'm African American Episcopal, or I am a Baptist, So even within the faith, we've had some deviations from the original thought, and we all reading from the same book, but I have different interpretations and different versions of this book based on what I personally believe. But if we did that to everybody outside of our faith, we would be a lot, well, I won't say that. We would learn how to communicate better because we'll see that we're most alike.
Well, it's interesting because, like, I definitely understand that, and I grew up non-denominational. Like I said, in a super church family, go Wilson Park Christian Community Church, y'all awesome and stuff. And I still regularly go and help out and whatnot when I can around church, or if I have the opportunity to go and do stuff with the kids or whatever. And so, like, I think it's a definite thing that when we talk about comparative religions, or even talk about like how it is that we ended up moving off into different denominations, how it is that you get to these dropping into denominations, get into these different thought processes, because like your religion is the philosophy of whatever your faith is. So it's your faith combined with the actual documentation of your philosophy to create this religion. So when we talk about it in that way, it's often a thing that you find that, okay, what in specific inspired these thought processes? And I think, so I was at Morgan State University 2010, and I had a history teacher, a world history teacher, who taught history at a HBCU, and I was like, man, like this is gonna be crazy because I'm at HBCU, and I get there, and my professor was a young white guy. He was like 28 years old, and he was the history teacher, and I was just like, this is nonsense, like this is crazy, like I didn't expect this to be a thing. And what it was a world history class, and he was an anthropologist. And what he did was start to break down each of the world's creation stories. And that was the first time I had ever heard of the different creation stories from other religions.
It's like a World Civ class.
My entire life, right? So I'm 18 and I'm just reading about, the I guess what they call the
flood.
The flood, but they also talked about the cuneiform tablets. So we can talk about cuneiform tablets, and then we start talking about the different ways it is that African religion, West African religion developed, South African religion, the different religions, and how all of them had these different comparisons to each other.
Right.
And so in that, it was like, okay, well, what happened to these different religions? And so the thing was always a thing that you saw throughout history was that whomever was the more advanced group, their religion took over. Until it is that you got to the Roman Empire where that didn't happen. Because what ended up happening is that when the Roman Empire comes into play, and if you're going off of biblical history in that way, or even cultural world history, the Roman Empire ends up adopting, and that's how they end up becoming, that empire of might, is that they adopt each new culture that they come in touch with. So instead of saying, hey, you can't do that anymore, it's like, oh, cool, you got a new god? All right, pay the taxes, we're going to slap it on, and then you literally get the Roman Catholic Church out of this. So it's like you have each denomination or each breakdown of philosophy that builds off of being a movement that has some social, political impact for the people that follow it. So like when you break off of the Episcopal Church and you go to African American Episcopal, you hit Mount Carmel Baptist Church in St. Louis, Missouri. You hit the Church of God in Christ, and all these different major bodies, black Christian bodies of people who organize not just for church purposes, but mainly and foundationally off the predominance of abolishment of slavery and then the ratification of Jim Crow laws.
Right.
So if you don't have that as a thing that's happening, because we couldn't go to church where we wanted to, and even now And I think like it was a quote that I just finished reading. It was like the most segregated place on a Sunday in the United States is in the church.
They say it's still true.
Yeah. So like when I went to a church with my uncle for the first time, and he's married to my aunt Chantel Duvall, and they live up in Connecticut with 3 of their 6 kids. And he was like, man, we're going to go to this church, this, that, and the other. And he took us to church, and we went to church with Uncle Billy. And he's my mom's brother, and they had guitars, and, you know, and not like, oh, we got the bass guitar player at every black church, and you got a couple guitar players or whatnot. But I'm talking, they had a rock band at the church. And
come to our church.
See, and it was just like, you're like, okay. And you know, my granddad.
That was a no-no at some point.
Oh, my
we
goodness.
realized that that's how there's a different way to commune, a different way to get the message across.
I think it's every generation seems to bring its you know, it's you know, when you're from 13 to 20, you got your own music, you know, and so we bring it into the church, and it. I was shocked, because I played drums. Can you imagine?
Past life.
Yeah, no, I still got a set, but I was a rock drummer. I had a rock band, and you know, the whole thing. And when I got saved at 27 years old, there was this guy named Phil Kagi who played the guitar, and I heard, and it's a rumor, I can't verify it, but they say that Jimi Hendrix thought he was the best guitar player in the world. And there's no doubt the guy is technical and fast, and, you know, and it was rock and roll music. And there was a whole lot of Christian rock and roll music, and that was 1976.
Wow.
So now, and with a grain of salt, please, you know who's big at our church today? Kanye. I mean, I don't. They got 2. I think they're 18-inch subwoofers in front of the altar, and then we got the main speakers up on the rafters. And our pastor says, "Pump it up! I want this place rocking." And it does most Sundays. You're all welcome to come. I'll give you the address.
Crash one Sunday.
And you know, and now Kanye is a whole thing by himself. I mean, I'm a little worried because there's a people say that revivals are wonderful and they are powerful and a lot of things happen, good things. They say, but when the revival starts to things can get pretty crazy. I mean, there have been some wild stories. So I don't know what's going to come of this with Kanye West. I got to say that unashamedly, I have prayed for Hollywood and for people in the arts, because their lives can be pretty stressful. I mean, I'm thinking right now. You know, like Jim Morrison died at 27. Janis Joplin, same age. Jimi Hendrix, same age. I don't know how old Whitney Houston was, but
she was a part of that 47 group.
Yeah, well, these were 27, so she was older. But you know, I mean, it's so many. Even you know, I mean, even these crazy death metal people, they got talent. You know, they're not. And
because people aren't addressing what is really wrong with people, and
what is really wrong with people?
It's various things. Some people have been molested. Some people have been abused. Some people have been neglected. Some people, you know, have been adopted out and just learning because they thought this was their family. Like, so many traumatic things are happening with people's lives. And we are coming from a place where the one thing that I love about the millennial craze, and then, what is it, Generation Z now? You can say, I'm bipolar. And it's not a stigma. It's starting to turn into a crutch, yes, but you can say it. You can come out as a black man living in the heart of the city and say, I'm a homosexual now, or I'm bi, or you can say these things without not lack of ridicule or judgment, but you can say it and your world not crash, or you not be destroyed. There's still people out there that are harming people and doing disrespectful things, but you can say it now. It's a place for you to be able to say it out loud to the world if you need to, right on your social media page. But a lot of those people died as artists, died senselessly because they didn't have a vehicle to be able to express who they really were. The honesty in that conversation was not there. So their representative started showing up. And after a while, that will actually destroy you from the inside out. So you have to maintain that image and that persona. I gotta start leaning on drugs or alcohol or sex or overeating or indulging, like I was saying before. Getting high off of that story as an artist is dangerous because you're taking yourself back and forth from that trauma and you're not doing anything about the trauma. It's one thing for me to think about when my grandmother died, when I'm on stage to help me get into that sad space to cry naturally. But if I never really got support and help and healing to get over her death, I am killing myself every time I resort to that memory, that sensory memory, that moment in time to make me cry. Because I'm not thinking about the harm that I'm opening myself up to. They said, what's his name, the Joker? He dug so deep into his past to get all the evil that he thought was required to be the Joker, that he didn't realize how open he left himself. And then he tried to deal with that, and on top of that, playing another role that may have opened up something in his sexuality, and then doing those roles back to back like that, he left himself vulnerable to death. Just left himself open. And I think that's the problem, specifically with artists. It's not a lack of faith. Most of them have a faith that is really strong, but they're torn between their faith and what their flesh is saying and what the world is doing to them in terms of putting them on this pedestal and shining this light and telling them to dance for their supper.
Fame is a dangerous thing.
It is. It's very dangerous when you're left to your own devices.
It's interesting because there's a song, Christian song out the last couple of years, I guess, and they call Jesus the famous one, and there's this kind of I guess well, the thing is they talk. We talk. I don't personally. I haven't gotten into it so much because I'm a little older than. But they talk about kids talk about making Jesus famous, and it's kind of an interesting. Relevant. Yeah. Well, but I mean, famous, really famous. I mean, he was famous when he walked the earth. He was famous. I mean, that book would not have been what it is, and so it's like part of our life is to be so. I mean, God. I don't want to say if. I want to say since. But let me just say, if God is perfect, and if He does not sin, and if everything He does is right, and if His love is perfect to us, for us, if His provision, what He wants us to have, is perfect and abundant for us, then He is famous, and we receive our worth from since He made us. Then we are worth what words begin to become, but we're just worth everything. But the fame part is His. It's really His. And that relieves us of having to perform to be somebody, because we can just relax and we can be what He will make us to be. It's altogether, in a way, it's so counterintuitive to the human predicament. You know, it's just like somebody called the kingdom of God the upside down kingdom. But if God is perfect, then it's really the right side up kingdom, and we're just the ones that are upside down. So anyways, I just
So we're at a part of the show that I hate.
the end?
It's the end for today. Because if you know, the Artist Exchange comes on every Monday and Friday, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. So I want you all to continue to tune in. But our last question for both of you gentlemen, and you've heard it before, but I've kind of altered the question a little bit. So what advice would you give to either your 17-year-old self to kind of soften the blow, not to change anything, or your 100-year-old self?
Oh my Lord.
So go to either extreme and ask that question.
Well, I just turned 28 in October, so I'll go for the 18-year-old self, 17-year-old self, me.
You scared of your 100-year-old self?
Nah, I just think like my 100-year-old self is like Dumbledore. Like that's
like
how
who?
Like my 100-year-old self is like sitting on a ranch with like buffalo and cattle and horses.
So what would you ask that person then?
Okay, cool. 100-year-old self. So my 100-year-old self, I would ask them. Did you see all the places you said you're going to see?
Okay. And your 17-year-old self?
And then for my 17-year-old self, I'd have to tell them to make sure it is.
You see everywhere you want.
Nah, but really, I would let them know that you're gonna be all right. Like, believe the hype. Like, believe the hype. I think a lot of times that we come out the gate as individuals and we are made to feel small about ourselves, and that literally, you got a whole world of people that may or may not. They're gonna humble you regardless. So the last thing that you can do,
try to humble you.
Well, yeah. So the biggest thing you can do for yourself is to make sure it is that you believe in yourself from day one. Because it took me no time to go to the Amazon rainforest, and it felt like it took a long time to get there. And they're like, oh yeah.
And all the needles don't hurt that you gotta take to get to that point.
All the needles don't hurt that you gotta take. The USDA. I don't know if I don't know who's watching the show, but the USDA. Well, that's another conversation.
Okay. I dare you.
What would I ask?
Your 17-year-old self and your 100-year-old self. So y'all on two different spectrums.
Yeah.
So what would you ask? Or what advice would you give?
What advice would I?
It could be advice or a question.
Boy, I'm a little. I don't exactly know. I think my 17-year-old, I would say to him,
You ought to lived.
17, because there were some things. There were some big things that happened like the next 2 years. 17. I probably would have given him the advice to look for some counsel from somebody, or to look for some friendship from somebody. I was kind of a loner at that point. I was kind of isolated. My 100-year-old self, I guess I'd ask him, why haven't you written your autobiography? I don't know. I really don't know. 100 years old, if I make it to 80, I'll be thankful. I tell you what, that's 10 years away. And believe me, we never touched on the subject of death, but it's more sure than taxes. You know, it's.
I'm afraid of it, so that's why I don't ever talk about it.
Oh, okay. Sorry. bring
It's
her.
not like the act of death or the idea. It's just the when and the where, the how, the if. Because I don't know, I might be that person. I don't know, that just never dies. So that's my hope in life. I don't know, crazy. So this Friday, we have 2 amazing guests. One young lady who has promised me a whole outfit. Who does that? So she'll be here from Philly. She's driving down from Philly. She'll be here. And the other young lady is actually Miss Precious Grace Givens. She is the owner and founder of Poets for Dinner. So she's probably going to feed me. Hint, hint, Miss Grace. I just want to receive things.
It's like, listen.
In my receiving season. But tune in this coming Friday. 2 awesome, phenomenal women guests doing their thing in the arts. So definitely tune in to that. And the next show up would be Living a Rich Life with Mr. Rich. So you can go somewhere now. Go ahead, go to bed, go to sleep, get your Monday rest on. This has been the Artist Exchange. Thank you, fellas.
Thank you.
Really
You're welcome.
appreciate
Thank you,
bro.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
sir.
Hey.
And again, we'll post where you can find these gentlemen that on social media. They've both been tagged in it. So ask some questions. They're both open books.
Absolutely.
When he feel like it.
Pretty much.
See you all later. Peace out.
Wow.
We went over only because we started a little bit late.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Any questions?
Oh, thank you so much.
The top one is a very long. I think it's a little over 3 hours. It's a documentary. The bottom one is Address for Our Church, if you're inclined.
What is the documentary about?
The documentary is about, the title of it is Black Genocide in the 21st Century. That's what it is. It's a very amazing, I saw it and I found out you could buy copies of it. I bought 3 or 4 copies of it. I don't have them anymore. They weren't that cheap. They weren't real expensive, but I think I paid $15 a piece for them. But now it's free on YouTube. You can watch it for free, and it is long, but it's well worth it.
Black Genocide and what?
In the 21st Century, I believe is the title, and it's done by black people. This is not done by white folks.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying they didn't have some help, maybe from some white folks. I don't know, but because the behind the scenes stuff, I don't know. But look at 15, 20 minutes if you're inclined to look at the whole thing. Go ahead. But it definitely exposes a little bit about Planned Parenthood that they don't want exposed.
So I'll say to you first, think about, just let me know how this felt. It's just this simple. It could be this much of a roundtable conversation, or just you going through whatever bullet points you may have or whatever topics you may have. And it's just this simple, this easy. We try not to make it overly complicated here because we have a lot of people who have never done this before that want to get into it. So take a couple days, maybe look back over the show, what you think, and just tell me what you think. Like I said, there's no pressure to go any further, but just let me know.
Let me get your phone number because I don't think
I think I called you from the station. That's probably why you got that number.
So what is your? I met a wonderful black fire lady.
Okay.
Right down, almost across the street, and her name was Sabrina.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you know Sabrina?
Mm-hmm.
And she's got a son named Xavier.
Yeah, that's one of my mom's friends.
That's something.
Fire office or headquarters is right down the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was. That was back when Freddie Gray was in the news. He really was in the news. It was just a hard time.
So we can take a photo out there and then just whatever questions I have for you. Just a couple.
Okay.
For you,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
One, I want them in code. Because I want to go into my classroom right now.
Is that seriously fur?
This is faux fur.
That's what I thought.
I won't tell people that.
Hey, I just you never know.
You never know.
$30.
You shouldn't even tell people that.
I did. I mean,
You just gotta carry it. Like,
But that's why I said nobody will ever believe you now because the mic's not on.
I'm pretty convincing, sir. I don't want to let you
Like,
know
man,
that.
I know that was that man's coat. He told me he bought it for $30. They see me show up, I'm like, wow. They're like, oh,
It's just your personality.
that's
You
not
gotta
the same
carry
guy. I
it.
can't do the same guy, but nah, that's not the same. Can't.
For a long, my house looks like a costume shop. So
Okay.
that was me for a number of years.
Man, that's yeah.
Being inappropriately dressed for the wrong situation.
I was working over at American Brown Center, and one of the girls I work with is actually on the board for.
Are they out of the house or out of
Didn't